All right, let's dive into one of the wildest, most fascinating origin stories in all of tech. We're talking about how a simple video game, a massively failed corporate project, and a totally forgotten computer accidentally gave us Unix, the operating system that, pretty much runs our entire modern world. And it all kicks off with a ridiculously expensive video game. Picture this. It's 1969. We're at the legendary Bell Labs, and $75, that's how much it cost in today's money to play a single session of a computer game. Can you imagine? What an incredibly expensive hobby. But look, this wasn't just any game. This game was about to become the spark for an absolute revolution. So that's the big question for us today. How on earth does a personal passion project, a simple game about flying around in space, become the catalyst for an entire technological ecosystem? Well, to figure that out, we actually have to go back to a project that was the complete and total opposite of simple. Okay, so our story really gets going inside the famous halls of Bell Labs. This place was buzzing with PhDs, just churning out world-changing inventions. And in the 1960s, they decided to take on this monumental project, a huge collaboration that was supposed to build the one operating system to rule them all. It was called Multics, and the idea behind it, it was incredible on paper. A system for multiple users, totally interactive, that could do everything for everyone. But the project, which was a joint effort with GE and MIT, just became a victim of its own massive ambition. It was way too complex, way too slow, and after years of work and not much to show for it, Bell Labs just pulled the plug in 1969. And this epic failure, it created a fundamental shift in thinking. Multics tried to be this sprawling, complicated beast that did everything. The lesson from its collapse was crystal clear. The future wasn't about that. The future was about simplicity, about elegance, and about this radical idea of doing just one thing, but doing it really, really well. So with the Multics project dead and buried, one of its developers, a young engineer named Ken Thompson, had a problem. See, he had written a game on the Multics system, a game he called Space Travel, and now he had absolutely nowhere to play it. So Thompson starts scrounging around the lab, and in some forgotten corner, he finds it, a DEC PDP-7. Now, by 1969 standards, this thing was an antique, a piece of obsolete junk with a tiny 16 kilobytes of memory. But it had a graphics terminal, and for Thompson, that was literally all that mattered. His mission was simple. I gotta get my game running on this old machine. And this, right here, is where the story becomes legendary. It's almost like something out of a movie. Thompson's wife took their young son on a 3-week trip to visit family. And this left him with 3 solid weeks of glorious, uninterrupted time to just focus on his project. What he managed to do in that time is, well, it's just staggering. He quickly realized that to get his game running the way he wanted, he needed more than just the game itself. He needed a basic operating system. So he set this insane goal, 1 major piece per week. Week 1, bam, he writes a text editor. Week 2, bam, an assembler to translate his code. And in week 3, he builds the very core of the operating system, the kernel and a command shell. In just 3 weeks, all by himself, he had a working OS. His colleague, Brian Kernighan, saw this new, incredibly stripped-down system and just made a joke. Since it was basically the anti-Multics, simple and singular instead of massive and complex, he suggested calling it Unix, with UNI replacing MULTI. Get it? The name stuck, though. It later got changed to the Unix we all know today. Okay, so Thompson and his colleague Dennis Ritchie now have this working, totally elegant operating system. The problem? It's running on an obsolete piece of junk. They needed a real computer, and that meant convincing management, who, remember, were still really sore about the whole Multics disaster. So their first shot, they went big. They asked for a powerful PDP-10 computer, the kind that was super popular in research labs. The price tag was a cool $500,000. And management's answer, still stinging from Multics, was a swift, clear, and very loud no. Not gonna happen. So they scaled back, they regrouped, and asked for a brand new, but much, much cheaper DEC PDP-11. Only $65,000. Rejected. Again, you can just feel the frustration, right? Their brilliant creation had no modern hardware to run on. It really seemed like the project might just die right there, which meant they had to get clever. So they hatched this plan. It's my favorite part of the story. They stopped asking for a computer for operating system research. That phrase was poison. Instead, they noticed the patent department desperately needed a word processor. So they pitched the PDP-11 as the perfect machine for preparing patent filings, and they even promised to write all the software for it themselves. The machine's real purpose, to be the new home for their OS, was a complete secret, a Trojan horse. And it worked! I mean, can you believe it? It actually worked. They got their machine. But they still had to be careful. The patent typists used it during the day, so the entire Unix team had to do all their development work at night, basically praying they wouldn't crash the system and lose all the important patent filings. And from these really humble nocturnal beginnings, Unix began to grow. What started as this secret project just to play a video game was about to become a global phenomenon. By 1971, the first official version was out. But the real turning point, the game changer, came in 1975 when AT&T started licensing Unix to universities for almost nothing. This move put it in the hands of thousands of bright, curious students and researchers, and it just opened the floodgates. Now, this university access led to a crucial split. While AT&T continued down its own commercial path, a team at UC Berkeley, led by a grad student named Bill Joy, started making their own major changes. This created the Berkeley Software Distribution, or BSD, which introduced absolutely vital innovations like the TCP/IP networking that, powers the entire internet. And just think about that number from 1978 again, 600. From a single, abandoned computer just a few years earlier, Unix was now a global force in the academic and research world. Its influence was spreading like a wildfire. And what's so amazing is the simple truth at the heart of it all, and is captured perfectly in Ken Thompson's own words. This world-changing operating system wasn't built for some grand purpose. He said it was built for himself, not for others. The main purpose was just to play that game. And that just leaves us with this final thought, right? The story of Unix isn't just about code. It's his powerful reminder that sometimes the biggest revolutions don't start in a boardroom with some grand plan. They start in a garage, or in this case, on an abandoned computer, fueled by one person's simple desire to create something for themselves. Thanks for joining us.